baby girl. It is very fitting that that is exactly how I open up this. But we'll see what happens here. Honestly, we'll see what happens. So, okay. This is a very, very unique experience, and I'm wondering if it has even started. I should check and see if it started. Okay. And ultimately, if it does or doesn't, in a minute here, I'm just gonna jump in and see what happens. I should probably grab the microphone so that you can hear me. That would probably be a good thing. Okay. All right. We are live on TikTok. We are live on YouTube. So that is good enough for me. um, I'm wondering if there are. I'm wondering if it'll even let me see the TikTok comments on here. Ain't it fun? This is really as much of an experiment as anything else. I'm trying to stream from something else besides TikTok, so I can stream to both TikTok and YouTube. And so this is as much of an experiment as anything. And at the moment, I don't see. Yeah, I'm not seeing the. It just tells me that there's some eyes, but that's about it. So I'm wondering if there is. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. That's interesting. That is a something I'll need to figure out how to address for sure. Um, which is probably just awkward me sitting here like this, I'll have me behind the door, like close your mouth, you know. I did know like at some point I'd be, here, but it's all like right, and I'm like, you know, um, it's kind of thrown off a bit. So yeah, I might just switch specifically to TikTok here. I don't know. I don't know how I want to do this. Um, Especially if I don't, or I might just launch into it. And um, I wish there was a way for me to be on TikTok, like on my phone, and see. Um, Maybe I'll work that out at some point. I just have not yet. So, um, yeah. Yeah, I really wonder what that would be. I'm gonna try something here. Hey there on YouTube. I'm streaming to try to figure this thing out. So like I'm seeing the comments on YouTube. I'm not seeing them on TikTok, which is fine. At some point, I just should really just launch into what I want to talk about tonight. Um, um, but I have not hit that point yet. And it won't be long. Okay. I'm trying something. Okay. 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 Um, okay, got it. So I'm I've just pulled up somewhere else so we can go from there so I can kind of try to keep track of both. That is what it is. What's up, everybody? Hi. I'm Just Wayne, and welcome to the Just Wayne Show. And really, what I want to do is spend some time talking through all the things that happened tonight. I usually am getting on here and I'm doing TikToks and I'm talking through like the takes as they're coming about. And I kind of took a minute to sit right there. I'll tell you how I became the prince of a town called Bel Air. No, I took a minute and like took all of those different takes in because on the one hand, I'm a parent and I'm trying to like maintain and stay on top of the activities and the parenting. And the other time, I'm a full time employee. I gotta stay on top of all those different things. And also, like there are so many things that are happening in the world, and specifically in the last day and a half or so. I mean, we had the record breaking speech from Cory Booker. We had the Supreme Court election in Wisconsin, and we had special election in Florida. We saw the House come to a screeching halt because Mike Johnson didn't like the result of some things. And so, like, there were a lot of things that were happening at the exact same time. And I just want to take some time tonight and walk through them and kind of talk about what is going on in the world right now because it does feel like a lot. It feels like we're constantly inundated with so many breaking news. And then I got news, guys. And then the news, like it's so much happening. And I feel like today is filled with some very specific wins and some reality checks moving forward. And so I want to talk about three things in politics and then one thing in pop. Number one, I want to talk about the record breaking speech by Cory Booker on the Senate floor. Number two, I want to talk about the Wisconsin Supreme Court election that just wrapped up this evening. Number three, I want to talk about the House rules vote that failed and the implications. And then finally, I want to talk about the Nokia video by Drake because I'm gonna be honest, when I saw the video the first time, I was like, yeah, this is cool. But then Drake fans had to be weird and the internet had to internet. So here we go. First things first, rest in peace, Uncle Phil. For real. Um, Politics is buzzing. There is so much that is always happening in the political world. And part of that is that we are living through the most chaotic administration in the history of the modern era. I always like to think about the modern era as like the last 100 years or so in American politics. And I don't know that there has been a more disruptive um, political group or institution than the Trump administration, specifically this era of the Trump administration. I've long said that when Donald Trump won the first time, he was shocked that he won. And he spent a lot of time being like, oh, I don't know what to do. Now that we're in this second time, he's like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. We've got Project 2025. I know nothing about Project 2025. I've never read it, frankly, and so like, but clearly this man has read this thing. Clearly, this man is leaning into the playbook of it. And so, what a lot of people have been saying, especially on the left, is like, bro, fight back. Like, get up. Somebody do something. And in walks Cory Booker. Now, Cory Booker, up till the last 27 hours or so, I think the most impressive thing that he had ever done was be in a relationship with Rosario Dawson, because let's be very clear. Rosario Dawson is gorgeous and incredibly talented. The first time I saw Rosario Dawson was in a movie called He Got Game, a movie I should not have been watching at that age of my life, but it was a Spike Lee joint. My dad used to have me watch Spike Lee joints and like write book reports almost on the movies themselves. And so the Rosario Dawson and Cory Booker, I was like, man, he's the man for that reason alone. But then and he rose at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time yesterday to, in essence, cause the Senate to come to a screeching halt, that no business could be done, given the reality of what we're facing in this current Trump administration. And I think it's very important that there have been filibusters in the past, like Ted Cruz, for example, who got up and read Dr. Seuss. This wasn't that. This wasn't just getting up and talking for the sake of talking. Cory Booker gave passion and points. He was reading letters from constituents who have been impacted by the Doge cuts, who have been impacted by the very work that the Trump administration has been doing, that the Republicans have been doing. If you don't know, I've been talking a lot about the idea of taxes, tariffs, and terminations, right? Like that's the messaging for the Democratic Party. What the Trump administration is doing is they are raising taxes on the middle class while cutting taxes on billionaires. They are implementing tariffs that are making our grocery bill and our everyday purchases more expensive. And then they are terminating everyday Americans across the board. And so the taxes, tariffs, and terminations are impacting the American people in significant ways. Not to mention the fact that every single day, Donald Trump does something that would be impeachable for any other president. Donald Trump has done a dozen impeachable things already, and it hasn't even been 100 days that he's been in office. And so we have this situation where the Trump administration is doing not only illegal things, but is doing things that are hurting the American people. It is doing things that are undermining and destroying the institutions that this country has held so dear. And as that is happening, Cory Booker rises to say, I'm going to tell you what's happening. I'm going to point out that this is not a left versus right issue. This is a right versus wrong issue. And he walks through over the course of 25 hours, giving these impassioned speeches. Like, it wasn't like he just read the phone book. This man was speaking, he was preaching, he was giving facts, he was laying down the law and saying, this is what is happening, this is what is going on in this country every single day because the Trump administration is illegally doing these things and Elon Musk is destroying this country every single day. He's getting up and he's laying this thing down for 25 hours. And in doing so, he conducted the longest speech on the Senate floor in history. Now, you've probably seen at this point, and it has been noted several times, that the record before this was 24 hours and 18 minutes, and that was held by Strom Thurmond. Strom Thurmond, is that his name? Make sure I got my notes here. So Strom Thurmond is this racist from South Carolina who was filibustering the Civil Rights Act. Strom Thurmond was filibustering the reality of African Americans being able to have equal access to the vote because he thought it was unnecessary, unreasonable, and unconstitutional. He thought it was against the Constitution for Black folks to have equal rights to white folks. And here we are now in 2025, sitting in a space where the Trump administration is doing everything it can to erase the contributions of Black people. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later on, but one of the votes that the House was bringing forward, which is called the SAVE Act, is attempting to make it more difficult to vote. Disenfranchisement has been the Republican playbook for years. There were laws that were passed in Georgia that specifically make it more difficult for people in Black majority areas to vote and make it illegal to help Black folks in those areas get to the vote. The state of North Carolina was sued and lost because it was intentionally drawing up lines in congressional districts to minimize and weaken the Black vote. The state of Alabama was sued and lost a lawsuit because they intentionally drew up congressional districts in order to water down the Black vote. Eliminating the power of Black people has been the consistent theme for the Republican Party for a very long time. And so now you have the worst nightmare of Strom Thurmond, a Black senator, getting up and speaking about the reality that America has to live up to its ideals. And I'll tell you this, there was something beautiful about that poetic justice. That poetic justice of you tried your best to keep us from having equal access to the vote. We have progressed in your face, despite the laws and the systems and structures that are created in ways that are prejudiced against and excluding of Black people. To have Cory Booker get up and be the person who speaks for 25 hours, but is also reminding us, I'm only speaking for these 25 hours because the Trump administration wants to bring us back to a place where the Strom Thurmonds of the world are considered normal. And so there's a couple key takeaways I had from the entire speech from Cory Booker. Number one, it was a clear and driving message that the Trump administration is not taking care of the American people. Like the same way JD Vance went over to Greenland and said, our message to Denmark is clear. You all are not taking good care of the people of Greenland. And somebody from Denmark was like, that's mighty funny of you to say when the people of Greenland have health care. Now, I don't know how we sit over here without universal health care, and Elon Musk is in here talking about cutting Social Security, and Republicans are sitting here trying to cut Medicare and Medicaid by $800 million. And you're going to look me in my face and tell me that Greenland, who actually has things that we are fighting for that are considered progressive and radical left Marxist communist theologies and ideologies, those things are rights other places in the world. The Trump administration and the Republican Party is fundamentally against the empowerment and betterment of the American people. That the administration is hurting them. And by reading those letters, he put on full display the disparity between what the administration says that it's doing and the realities and experiences of the American people. Number two, so there's that. There's a clear message. The Trump administration is failing America. Number two, it's a clear message that this type of action can be done again. It's a clear message that, like, when we need to, somebody will get on this floor and talk for an hour and a half, for an entire day, for hours on end. When we need to, somebody will get up and they will filibuster your little bill that you're going to try to push through to cut Medicare and Medicaid. We'll do it. How do you know we'll do it? I just did. See, for years, it was the threat of the filibuster. We'll filibuster you, but folks wasn't actually getting filibustered. Cory Booker was like, don't believe me, just watch. Come on. Right? Like Cory Booker got up there and was like, what bathroom? I don't need no bathroom. What you talking about? I'm here all day. All day, son. Like Cory Booker made it very, very clear that the Democrats will rise up, will step up in these moments to combat you. The filibuster is no longer a threat. It's a reality. And my third takeaway is that, once again, a Black person had to do something. In the immediate aftermath of the election, when the exit polls came out, I made a video and I said, Black folks tried to save democracy and no one helped. Because 92% of Black women, 80% of Black men voted for Kamala Harris. Democracy was indeed on the ballot. How do I know that democracy is on the ballot? The Trump administration is now trying to remove, have impeached, or eliminate the power of any federal judge that puts a check and balance on the executive branch. The Trump administration has made illegal moves of withholding funding and ending departments that it cannot do without acts of Congress, stealing power away from Congress. So the Trump administration is trying to take power away from judges, the judicial branch, trying to take power away from Congress, the legislative branch, and consolidate it in the executive branch. Like, first of all, it's illegal. Second of all, that's not how our system is set up. And third of all, that's the opposite of democracy. We were saying the whole time, that's what's going to happen. We were saying the whole time, like, yo, if you put that man in office, he's going to be a dictator. He won't be a dictator. I'll only be a dictator on day one, frankly, because we have such incompetent people, the stupidest people. They've been ripping us off, frankly, for many, many years in ways that no one has ever seen before, folks. Like, that has happened. And now they're floating the idea of Trump running for a third term, which I saw a Republican get online and say, well, I wouldn't want Obama to run for a third term. And I need you all to know that I will have unlimited content. Like Cynthia Erivo, unlimited. If those two, if it's Barack Obama versus Donald Trump, unlimited content. Like this, frankly, Barack Obama was not even born here. He's one of the worst presidents outside of sleepy Joe Biden. Frankly, there's never been a more incompetent president. I have such a big brain, and Barack Obama has a small brain. Donald, let me be clear. Uh, every time that you have been president, we've seen the worst of not only Americans, but our standing in the world. And I I urge everyone who doesn't like Trump, don't boo, vote. Like it'll just be I will be insufferable if that were to happen. But we're seeing democracy die in our face every single day. And we knew that was going to be the case. We knew it was on the ballot. And we're seeing it die. And Black folks tried to save that, and no one else helped. And so it doesn't surprise me that Cory Booker, one of, I saw somebody say today, he's only one of 4 Black senators. And he's like, yes, I said 4, because I'm not counting that 5th one. Talking about Tim Scott. But Cory Booker had to be the person that got up and did something. Reality is, Black people have always believed in the ideals of this country and have displayed themselves to be patriotic towards those ideas, fighting for, bleeding for, pressing towards those ideals in a way and in the face of those who consider themselves patriots, but really just white supremacists who are draped in red, white, and blue. The reality is, Black folks have had to do the work. I need white folks to step up, because it's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us being willing to stand on our feet for 25 hours to make a difference. And speaking of making a difference and focusing in lines, there were several elections that happened today. And this is one of the things that I thought was really genius about Cory Booker doing this speech today, or over the last day, was recognizing that there were special elections in Florida and the Wisconsin Supreme Court election in Wisconsin. Now, if you don't know, Elon Musk tried to buy the Wisconsin Supreme Court seat, kind of like how he bought the presidency. He was able to spend like $270 million, and in the process, like Starlink and Tesla and all these things. I love Tesla. Like, he was able to buy his way into all of the different elements of the government through that $277 million. And so Elon Musk began to pump money into this Wisconsin election, Supreme Court election, in part because the Supreme Court will help decide the congressional maps in Wisconsin. And Wisconsin is one of those states. I was talking about gerrymandering. We're talking about North Carolina or Alabama or Ohio or all these different places. Like, Wisconsin is one of those places. And so the Elon Musk went and pumped money into it. Elon Musk committed a felony. He committed a felony by bribing and offering money in return for people voting for at all, but voting for a particular candidate. And he held a town hall in which he said he was going to give away 2 $1 million checks. He was like, when President Trump, and democracy is dying when we don't do what I want us to do. Like, that's in essence what he's saying, right? Like, so he ends up giving out 2 $1 million checks. Veritas. Free speech is. I'm an advocate of how that, when you return it back to how states do things, like it's really. I'd be like, spit it out, bro. Especially because folks had a lot to say about Joe Biden, but I digress. Now, it should be noted that these two $1 million checks were given to people who had direct connection to the Republican Party in Wisconsin. The guy who got the check, he was the president of the Green Bay, Wisconsin group, and the young woman, Katrina, I think her name was, who got a check. She worked at a company for a mega donor, Republican mega donor in Wisconsin, and so it's almost like it's a scam. It's almost like it's not real. Like the whole thing is a hustle. Because if one thing Elon Musk is a hustler. Because a diva is a female version of a hustler, right? And Elon is definitely a hustler. And so Elon tries to buy his way into being able to get a conservative majority in the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And yet, it lost. Susan Crawford has been declared the winner of the Supreme Court uh, election in Wisconsin over, let me find his name really quickly. Um, Schemmel was his last name. Brad Schemmel. So Susan Crawford wins over Brad Schemmel. And it was reported that there was a record voter turnout in Milwaukee. So much so that Milwaukee ran out of ballots. And so people were online going, if you're in line in Wisconsin, stay there. Like everything's gonna get right. It's like, so just wait. Like the people showed up in response to Elon Musk subverting democracy by using monopoly money. I saw somebody over in TikTok say monopoly money, by using monopoly money in order to circumvent the system. And so when Elon tries to win, the people fought against him, showing up in record numbers, voting, getting out. And this is once again what has to happen. In the same way I say Cory Booker is an example of what Democrats in the House and the Senate need to go out there and do, the same way people, when we have special elections that are coming up, we have actual elections that are coming up here in the fall of 2025. We have another election cycle that's going to come up in 2026. Like, if you're not contributing money, participating in primaries, door knocking, what are we doing? And I'm saying this as a person who's a yapper. I get online and I yap, but I always like to remind people that I don't just get on here and talk about these things. I've spent my life actually doing this work. I've spent my life getting out, speaking to people, trying to figure out how to support the candidates the best way that I can. I spent my life in education. I spent my life working with the very people and students who need policies, practices, procedures changed, and then work with politicians to get those things changed. Like, and I'm sitting in a position of privilege from that. I do understand that. I'm saying whatever your realm of influence is, and for the folks in Wisconsin, their sphere of influence was to vote. Don't boo, vote. That's what they could do. So here it is. Cory Booker breaks a record, standing up in the Senate for 25 hours. Milwaukee breaks a record for voter turnout, people standing in line for hours. Because we know that what is happening is wrong. And we need to continue to push this thing forward. We need to do whatever it takes to fight against the forces that are hurting us. Because when we do, we will find bipartisan support. Perfect example is Mike Johnson decided to conclude all the votes in the House for the rest of the week because he was butthurt about something that happened. And that something is that two moms wanted to include in a rules package the idea of proxy voting. In essence, for the first 12 weeks after your child is born, whether you're a mom or dad, for the first 12 weeks, you get to vote by proxy so that you don't have to. I mean, they've literally brought their newborns to the House floor in order to participate in votes, especially with how razor thin the majority is. Having a person miss could be a big deal. And so when the So they wanted to have proxy voting, which in essence means that I can ask someone else, my proxy, to vote on my behalf since I can't be there. And Mike Johnson said, that's a slippery slope. I don't like it. It's unconstitutional. And then he pushed for a rules package to squash that very thing because the two moms whose names are, sorry, let me get in my notes here. I'm sorry, I lost myself in my notes here. Representative Brittany Peterson of Colorado, who's a Democrat, and Representative Anna Paulina Luna of Florida, who's a Republican. And so the reality is, on the one hand, you have a bipartisan issue here. I need to be able to just like not be on the House floor with a newborn. And they're saying everyone should have that right. Now, once again, it is frustrating to live in a country that does not have paternity and maternity leave that is extensive enough for people to be able to take the necessary time to care for themselves and their children after a child is born or after they adopt somebody and whatever that might be. And so as that's happening, everywhere else in the world, that every developed country has maternity paternity leave that's solid. You have Mike Johnson going, I don't like that. I don't want you to be able to do that. I think it's a slippery slope. I think it's unconstitutional. The party of family values, mind you. The party of family values is saying, no, y'all don't get to do that. So the two moms go and get signatures in order to circumvent the House Speaker to get a vote on the floor to add proxy voting. And Mike Johnson adds the amendment to a rules package to be like, no, that's not allowed. And then brought it to the floor, and his vote failed. The vote for his amendment failed. 9 Republicans voted with all the Democrats to squash it. And Mike Johnson was like, well, 9 Republicans decided to go with all the Democrats, but we know that it's unconstitutional. And since we can't get that thing done, then we're not going to get anything else done this week. Anything else being one of the things was the SAVE Act, which is a law that was a bill that was attempting to make voting more difficult for people. Another thing was the Rogue Judges Act, which would seek to cause federal judges to no longer have national jurisdiction, but only local jurisdiction, in essence, eliminating their power. Yeah, so I'm really glad that these two moms said we deserve to be able to vote by proxy and be at home with our kids while still doing the thing that our constituents asked us to do. And I'm so glad that it was a Republican and a Democrat, bipartisan. I'm so glad that they got on the steps of the Capitol and said, no, don't F with moms. Don't do it. We're in this together. And Mike Johnson took his ball and went home. And so whether it's Cory Booker, 24 hours, whether it's the voters in Wisconsin coming out in droves, whether it's moms just standing up for themselves and having bipartisan support in the House, what we're seeing in politics right now is that the people are pushing back. And I think that's the spot that we have to recognize, is that we all have a part. We all have a part in what this fight looks like. So that's what's been happening in politics. Let me just check these. Okay, somebody pointed out the camera. So I'm on my computer and I'm trying. This whole thing is an experiment. So I'm trying to use something different. I do need to get a camera. So yeah, I should definitely drop my Cash App if you want to contribute, because yes, Lord. But I'm trying to stream across multiple platforms. So that's the new thing. So thank you all so much for rocking with me thus far, talking about politics. I really just have one more thing I want to talk about. And that is, of course, if you've been following for a long time, I talk about politics and I talk about pop culture. And the thing in pop culture is Drake dropped a music video for Nokia. Now, what's going to happen is because I said his name, I said Candyman's name. And so because of that, all of a sudden you're going to have people hopping in the comment section on TikTok and be like, "Why are you always bringing up Drake?" Right? Which he's relevant. That's why I bring him up. Um, and so yesterday, Drake drops a video for Nokia. And I knew it was coming. Like I knew a video was going to come eventually. And the first time I watched it through, I promise you, I should have taken the screenshots from my group chat, but the group chat is sacred. But my boy John sent us the video and was like, "I'm not mad at it." And I was like, "I'm not mad at it either. I think it works. I like it." Um, and the even my sister was like, "Yeah, no, I like the visual, right?" And so like all of that's happening and the and then Drake fans made it weird. And they were like, "Ha ha ha ha, look at him, he's trolling Kendrick. Look at all the ways that he's trolling Kendrick in the music video." And at that point I was like, I was trying. I was really trying not to do this with y'all. Like I was trying my best to just sit back and be like, hey, Nokia is a fun song. I promise you, the only song from Some Sexy Songs for You that had any replayability for me, the only song that like I heard it one time. I promise I listened to the entire song once. And I was walking around going, "Who's calling my phone? Who's calling my phone?" Right. like I just baby girl. Like I just it's fun. Like that's keep making me dance, waving my hands, and there won't be no stress. It's a fun song. And so I was like, good, drop the video. And then Drake fans made it weird because at the end of the day, um, there are way too many similarities between moments in the Nokia music video and the Not Like Us music video. And what's frustrating is that this is the thesis statement of the entire beef, right? The entire beef was, hey, you make fun music. That's awesome. And also, you're not a colleague, you're a colonizer. Because what in essence Drake did in this music video is he took the work product of Dave Free and applied it as if to say, ha 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 ha. Now, two things. Number one, um, the aesthetic of, oh no, okay, I'm sorry, I'm saying my connection is unstable. I'm gonna try it. Give me a second. Okay, so two things. Number one, the aesthetic and the way that the whole thing was built out was designed by Dave Free and PG Lang, the creative team over there. They are very specific about their visuals. One thing that PG Lang does is it takes its visuals seriously and puts a lot of thought into them so that nerds like me can watch them and dissect them. That is, that they do it for us. They do it for themselves because they're nerds and they do it for me. And so to take a lot of the aesthetic and just apply it into your song as if to say like, "Ha, look at me, I'm just taking your stuff," when literally Kendrick says, "You're not a rap artist, you're a scam artist with hopes of being accepted." Like when he says, "You're not a colleague, you a colonizer. You run to Atlanta when you need to check balance." Like to run to America to imitate heritage, but they can't imitate this violence. Like the whole thing is Kendrick being like, "You don't have an original thought or bone in your body." And this is another great example of the fact that Drake just isn't an original cat, unfortunately. Like he's just not. And so recognizing whether it's the aesthetic itself, whether it's stealing multiple scenes shot for shot, bar for bar. He stole my whole flow, bar for bar, like this has been the thing for Drake in his whole career. Whether it's copying some of the visuals from the Super Bowl, right? Whether it's like some of the dancey stuff, which I think that's less whatever, or aura farming, having SGA there in the same way that Kendrick had DeMar DeRozan. Like, there's on the one hand just the thesis statement of you're not original, you are a copycat, you are always copying off of somebody else. And then there's the second level of things, which is like, how can you troll someone that you lost to? Like, how are you trolling? How does that work? You don't get to troll the guy who beat you. Not just that, But you don't get to, on the one hand, troll, and on the other hand, be like, yeah, that music video ruined my life. Drake is arguing in a court of law right now that the Not Like Us music video ruined his life. So to take that music video and to copy paste it with yourself, to Photoshop yourself into some of the scenes and then be like, ha ha, joke's on you, high five, I'm bulletproof, which is also a Kendrick Lamar line about Drake from the BET Cypher back in 2013, but I digress. And so at the end of the day, like, you don't get to have it both ways. And it's very clear that Drake wants to have it both ways, and he will think he can have his cake and eat it too because his fans worship at the throne of the sixth god. And so they're like, oh my God, no, he's trolling. It's so funny. And it's like, you can't troll the guy who beat you, and you can't say that it ruined your life. And then at the same time, like, me and my son today in the car were re-listening to some of the songs from the beef. Um, and Family Matters came on. And the idea of cease and desist is for hoes. So then what does that make you, Drake? So like that's at the end of the day, what could have just been a cool vibe and music video that he did with his own original creativity and brought in a director and did the whole thing and had moved away. I'm moving on, like bumper rap battle, trying to get the party lit, right? So you're saying bumper rap battle, you're trying to get the party lit. Cool. Move on, right? Because everybody says Kendrick's dragging it, Kendrick's dragging it. Y'all K-bots drag it. You intentionally copy pasted this man's music video. And the unfortunate thing is, like, he's just so not self-aware that of course he did. Of course he did. That's how not self-aware he is. Like that's the landing spot. And he'll continue to because nobody will tell him otherwise. And so I'll admit that right now, the politics of this country have me feeling as such that like Canada seems like a really great option. I'm just so glad that at least in one thing, at least in hip hop, we've got Canada beat. And with that, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Thank you all so much for being a part of this experiment. It's like I'm on Love is Blind or, the experiment. We just have to get through the entire experiment. But thank you all so much for coming to this experiment. I will make it better. This will get not so glitchy on the TikTok side. I apologize for the video quality over there. I will figure that part out. But hopefully the audio quality was a-okay. This will end up on YouTube as well. I'll clip it. I'll get the actual good portions up on to the TikToks. But thank you all so much for hanging out with me tonight. For all the folks and almost 10,000, well, almost 9,000 likes over on TikTok. Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much, YouTube. I love y'all. Have a great night, and I'll see y'all tomorrow night.